What's up? How you doing? Here we are. Beautiful day. Beautiful day. Saturday afternoon. Nice. So we're gonna have some Greek coffee, brand new. Have not opened it up yet. It's got the parakeet on the front. So $7.99 for 6.8 ounces. 6.8 ounces. Papagalos traditional. 100% rich, no, 100% natural, and then rich aroma. Product of Greece. Best before 1/2025. We'll give it a try here. Imported from Greece. Tightly sealed. Very nice. Very nice aroma. I don't know if you can see in there. Dark, I don't know. It's in there. Very nice. So we have our little cup for the coffee right there. Oh, we have the sugar, 1 and 1. 1 sugar, 1 coffee. That's it. Very simple. Oh, put the fire there. Okay. I'll mix it down here. Some people say, I don't know who they are, but some, they say that it's best to put the sugar in first and then the coffee. Some people say the opposite. To me, I have not noticed much of a difference. I don't know. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. So, there's water in here already. 1 teaspoon sugar. And a heaping teaspoon of coffee. Well, heaping, you know. I put that much. A little bit extra, but so what? Give it a little spin. This is brand new. Bought it the other day. So this this coffee you have to keep an eye on because it expands, and before you know it, it's spilling. I may edit here. I'm not going to sit here and show the whole thing, but yeah, that good looking cup. Yeah, quiet day. One time I did it the old-fashioned way. I got sand and I heated up the sand in a pan, and then I put the coffee in there, put one of these in there, but it took forever. It took a long time. That smells nice. See the steam. That's coming. Yep, here it goes. Oh, almost came out. Very nice. Smells delicious. Smells delicious. I hear birds in the distance. I like hearing birds chirping away. When I was a kid, a long time ago, I would always have my windows open in my room, and I could see, because we were in a valley type area, and there were surrounding hills in my neighborhood, and from my back window I could see way in the distance, probably a few miles out, and I could see the hilly areas with the little houses. Looked like kind of looked like that neighborhood of make-believe that Mr. Rogers would walk through. And I was always thinking, where are these little, mystery houses? Now, I got older, I know where they are. But back then you'd hear dogs, especially fall time, Saturday mornings. I would have the window open and I would hear dogs barking in the distance. And you know how it sounds like a bit echo-ish, like somebody put a little reverb on the bark. And I would hear them barking, like maybe, I don't know, quarter mile away, maybe 1/10 of a mile, who knows. But yeah, they were always barking. And then I would look at the houses and go, what are those people doing? I wonder what they're doing today. And I always think of this house, but in second kindergarten number 2, my school was in a quiet neighborhood, and very old school. It was there for, it's still there, looks the same. But I would look out the window occasionally. You'd roam around and you'd kind of look out, and there was this house amongst many houses on the street. Was a dead end on the other side. So, and this house was kind of towards the end. It had a very nice, almost like remember that house on Bewitched? Kind of that style of house. And I've never been in the inside of this house, but I always imagined it in a certain way in my head. And I had an image of like a housewife or somebody, living in there and sitting at the kitchen table with the lights off and the shades up, so you had natural sunlight. And always in my imagination it was raining out, and she was sitting there with a cup of coffee, just contemplating, looking out the window and just thinking about things. And when I would look at that house, I always imagined, as if it were real, that the woman was in there sitting at the kitchen table and just relaxing with a cup of coffee and looking out the window while it was raining out. Delicious. Very good. So I'm not there anymore, but if I were and there was ever, like, they were selling that house and they had open house where you could go and see it, I would love to have gone inside and checked it out, see how close I was. But I pictured a decent sized kitchen, you know, everything in its place, and the kitchen table was right up against the window, and the window was, you know, a large one with dividers, wooden ones. And she would sit there, and as the rain was falling, maybe she was waiting for her kids to get, you know, out of school or something. You know, she looked in my imagination like she was around 42. So good. So good. But the area that my school was in was, you know, pretty cozy. Cozy homes. Especially fall time. I love fall time. October, November, something about it, you know. And if anybody visits, say, New England, New York, that area, upper state New York, Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire, Talia Shire, they know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a really nice time of the year, smells nice, has that nice crisp fresh smell in the air. Makes you a little nostalgic of the past, which is the only thing you can be nostalgic about. You cannot be nostalgic about the future. Oh man, that is good. Good coffee. But yeah, I remember back then you don't have much to think about, except, you know, you got to go to school and play a little bit, and then on the way home I would walk home. It was normal back then. A lot of kids walked home from kindergarten, and I would walk home, and there was a little convenience store. I mentioned this place a lot, but I'm mentioning it again. And it was an old guy, not old, but I would, well, old, but, you know, like probably like old from my point of view. He was around like maybe 58, 60, around there. And it was a small store. Had the counter and then a little aisle, and he had bread, milk, things like that, ice cream in the back. And of course, Chinese fortune gum that I love to get. 1 penny a piece. I'd go in there, and how much profit was there in that he would spend the time even selling it? You know, I would say, give me 100 pieces, and he'd start counting 2 by 2. 100. Give me $1. So I'd give him the $1. What's the profit in that? Whatever the profit is, it's not enough. So he also sold those airplanes, the wooden ones. I love those. Put them together. They always broke. They'd crash land or something, and the back would break, the fin, the wing would crack. That little plastic dude, pull them out. But yeah. And I remember one time my grandmother, I was 5 years old. I could have stayed home alone. Didn't need the babysitter there. I was actually babysitting her. So she was there. My parents had to go somewhere. And I was like 5 years old. And she was in the kitchen. And I said to her, I'm going to go in the backyard and play for a little bit. And she goes, okay. But that's not what I did. I went to the basement. I opened up the door. And I ran to my school, to that little store, and I bought, back then they were like 15 cents. I bought those little airplanes, the gliders, and then I came back. She didn't even notice I was gone. Now, a 5-year-old leaving the house and going that far, unheard of. Kids are not, you know, that way anymore. But in my time, we roamed. We were all over the place. You know, once you became a certain age, the parents were like, go out and play. You know, I was 5 years old. I was all over the place, even before that. But 5 years old definitely was roaming around. I remember there was this kid that played hockey, a lot older than me. He probably had a decade on me. So I was like 5, he was like 15 or, you know, 14, whatever. And he was like a goalie, I remember, and I'd bump into him. I'd talk to him for a few minutes at the end of the street there. Sometimes I would be in the field with my friends. You know, I remember first grade, we'd hang around at the field, you know, playing around there, running around, getting in trouble. Then the railroad tracks. Railroad tracks were a big thing, and they still are for me. The railroad tracks. We used to go there after school. My school was here. Then you had a big field. You had to cross it. And then the railroad tracks. And back then it was, railroad tracks were built right around the Civil War. So the 1860s. Old system. And there was a old, I don't know if it was a passenger train. It was old, dingy looking. And we would play at the railroad tracks. 6 years old playing there. Nobody knew that we were there. And so every day after school for about an hour or so, we'd hang out there and mess around. We loved exploring, finding things, and then we'd walk on the tracks and we'd hear the train coming. We'd run and then jump off the side, and the train would be like, and then watch the train go by. One time while the train was going by, and we felt safe behind, because there was so the train would be up here, and then you had like a slope, and we'd hide in the slope. One day I was digging with a stick, digging while the train was going by, and I hit something, and I noticed there was a bottle, and I pulled it out, and it was a full bottle of alcohol, like vodka, clear, and I pulled it out, and then I pulled another one out, and another one, and it was just full of these bottles that somebody had buried there, but they were all full and unbroken, obviously. We didn't open them and start, you know, guzzling. We didn't do that. We just, you know, tossed them to the side. But I remember that we found full bottles of alcohol. Who knows how long they were in there and why they were buried. I'm thinking during Prohibition, somebody buried them there and then forgot about them, or couldn't find them again. So I had mentioned it to my friend. I had a friend who also hung around. We hung around together at the railroad tracks. Little putt-putt there going home. Mama's boy. And I mentioned it to him. He remembered it. I said to him, remember that time we found those bottles? And he goes, I do remember that. So we have no idea what. So anyway, we spent a good portion of first, second, and third grade, because that's the times I went to that school, playing there at the railroad tracks. And then after that, I continued doing that. Every time I'd meet somebody new, a new friend, I'd say, I'll show you a place, hang out. We'd hang around at the railroad tracks, and then I'd walk the length, you know, probably like 4 miles. It was longer than that, but I would walk that length, and every so often there would be an overpass with tons of pigeons living there. And if you were a homeless man, now back then you didn't see anybody you know, sleeping there, but if I were a homeless man, I would pick that spot and have a little, you know, little cot, you know, a little area to sleep at, and I'd probably hunt pigeons and roast them. All right, I never had pigeon, but good to the last drop. So that was good. So yeah, so I would walk up and down. There was always something, you know. You had my area that was near the tracks, but then you'd go further up and there were other areas that were just as interesting. And we'd spend all day there. So, you know, like if it was like a Saturday, we'd see our cartoons and then we'd meet up. We'd meet up and hang around there. And of course, you know, like I've said before, the auto parts store was a big thing for us. Going to the auto parts store and just look around. Now imagine, from our point of view, we felt like we blended in, but for the workers that were there, they were grown up. They were in their 50s, older guys, and we were 6 years old. They were probably looking at us going, there they are again, investigating in here. And that's where I became a fan of STP. My friend came in one day, and in his lunchbox, he opens it up and he goes, look, and it's STP sticker. I go, how'd you get that? And he goes, he had to spell a word for the auto parts place. And I said, oh, I want one. So he goes, oh, Saturday, we'll go. So I remember Saturday I was there on the sidewalk practicing spelling. And then I go, I'm good. I went in there and I said, can I have an STP sticker? And pulls out a pen and paper, slaps it on the table, and he goes, told me the word, write it out. And I wrote it out, he looked at it, reached underneath, and I got a nice STP sticker. And to this day, I love STP products, but I love the stickers even more. Even more. So yeah, but I took my sticker and I put it on my bike. I had a red bike back then. Put it on my bike, STP. And then the other thing that was cool was, I think it was Wonder Bread. Because there was another competitor, but I'm pretty sure it was Wonder Bread. Wonder Bread used to give away stickers. You'd buy a loaf of toast bread, sliced bread, and then inside was a weird sticker. Could have been like a monster head or something, and we would collect them, me and my friend. My lunchbox on the inside was full of those. Oh, beautiful breeze. So nice. This is like the perfect temperature. Perfect temperature, perfect humidity blend. Just a feeling of well-being right now. Very nice. I can't describe how nice it is out. Low, the humidity is just right. Perfect. Perfect. Nice breeze. So yeah, those stickers, I'm sure if I go on YouTube or Amazon, not Amazon, eBay or something, and type in stickers from Wonder Bread 1970s, it'll pop up the images. But my lunchbox inside had them. And then in that class, in first grade, we didn't go to the cafeteria. We sat in class while a lunch monitor would come and watch us. And I sat first row, and my good friend sat next to me second row, and he always had the same thing for lunch: bologna sandwich and chips. I had different things, so we'd sit there, and you always felt like out of place a little bit, you know. You were used to being at home and familiar surroundings, and here you are having lunch with strangers, kind of. So he would always open up the sandwich, open up the chip bag, and then put the chips there, and then watch me watch him do that, and then he'd put it in and eat. I guess it made the sandwich better. And then I would get my little chocolate milk, because every Friday the teacher would say, with a show of hands, let me know who wants chocolate milk. And then I'd raise my hand, she'd jot it down, and white milk, she'd jot that down. And every day at lunchtime, this kid would come by with a crate, two crates, and put them and leave them where the door is in the classroom, and then somebody would pass them out. And then I'd sit there with my straw, and the chocolate milk was really good, really good. I wasn't a fan of the white milk. Not a fan. Too, I don't know, too tasteless. So we'd eat the lunch, and then we'd make plans. Me and my two friends there that we'd hang around the railroad tracks. We'd say, okay, what are we doing? And we'd say, okay, we're going to go to the railroad tracks. We're going to play there. And that was pretty much the plan. So yeah, very, very nice times. A lot of freedom. A lot of freedom, unimaginable freedom back then compared to now. Yeah, I mean, I will say there were a few kids back then that grew up like now kids grow up, where their parents constantly, where you going, what are you doing, you know, constantly. But that was not the way I grew up. I was always doing my thing, and nobody said, hey, where you going? Where you going? Where were you? I came and went as I pleased. You know, I didn't feel like, oh, I'm here now. My mother's like, where you going now? Oh, I'm going to go to, you know, John's house. I'll be there for a little bit. Then I'm coming home at this time. None of that. We were up and down, up and down. If my mother wanted to know, or my father wanted to know where I was, they wouldn't be able to find me. They wouldn't, because they probably assumed I was somewhere close by. Sometimes I was. Sometimes I was, you know, within a block. But there were other times when I was 20 blocks, 30 blocks away, and that's far. and they wouldn't, like, if they needed me for something, if they wanted, like, say my father came home from work one day early and said, hey, let's go to Maine. And my mother's like, all right, where's Nick? It's like, I don't know. They would not be able to find me. They'd have to wait until I felt like it was time to come home. Yeah, we had, you know, we were united as a family, but we also were individuals. We did our own thing too. You know, especially when I learned how to, because I learned how to ride a bike really early. You know, it was like early 5, and I was already riding a bike everywhere. And it could have been 4 years old, but I had this red bike that I learned on, and I remember when I first learned, I had a hard time negotiating fire hydrants. So I would see it, and I'd say, all right, and a little cat. I was fast. I'd see the fire hydrant coming, and I'd slam into it. You know, I'd miss it by sometimes a 1/4 inch, and I'd be like, oh, I missed it. And other times I'd slam into it because I was still improving. That's how you learn, by crashing. And then I would take that bike and go far with it. I had a chain, I'd tie it up, and then I'd walk. You know, if I had to go somewhere, I'd tie it up off trail. But yeah, the railroad tracks, I still to this day, another Monarch, still to this day I enjoy hanging out at the railroad tracks. I love freight trains. If a train is stopped, I have to investigate every corner of it. Climb on, you know, the sides there, look around. And then I love it when there's old abandoned buildings along the railroad tracks. Like I was up probably about an hour from here north, and there was this town with all these weird warehouses along the railroad tracks. So I stopped there and I just walked around all day checking out everything. And then I'll go down to El Cajon, not Al, El Cajon. Could be Al, that's a cool name. But down there, I've been going for many years now, and I love that place. Tons of trains every so often, big trains. It's all freight trains there. You don't see any light rail. But I've been going there since my kids were like months old. Go down there, hang around. A lot of sand there though. You have to have 4-wheel drive. If you go in there with like a sedan, you're not gonna get out. You're gonna get stuck in there. But because it's like that soft sand. Then there's a tunnel. Then there's an old abandoned train car in the back there, which every time I go, it's probably the same beehive, but there's a beehive on one of the cars underneath. Tons of bees, in and out, in and out. So I go there. That's my favorite one. Then there's another one out in the Mojave, where, you know, it's quiet. There's a lot of dirt mounds there. I'm telling you, if I had a BMX bike now or my old bike, I would be jumping those things. So yeah, love the railroad. And then when I got a little older, I would ride the trains all day. Began in the, like, I was riding them with my mother when I was really young, so she would take me in town. But when I got to 6th grade, I abandoned the mother thing. Plus by then my mother had her driver's license, and so she didn't take the train anymore. But I became a really big public transportation guy. I would get on the buses, but I especially loved the trains. Get on the trains, and all day I had it planned out. You know, go from here to there, switch lines, you know, because if you didn't get off the train, it was one fee, one fare, and then you would just continue riding and switch in the subway system. So I would do that all the time. I would go to the airport, pretend that I was traveling somewhere, you know, somewhere far away, like maybe like 15 hours flying. And then I had my favorite stop. I'd stop there, get a donut at Dunkin' Donuts. I would eat the donut. Then I'd get on the train system and continue. Then I would go out to there was one that would take you out to the beach, right, city, and I would go there. But I was on the train all over the city. Like back then, if they needed me, no way they could find me. Like if there was ever an emergency where they needed to get, you know, information to me, they wouldn't be able to find me. And luckily that never happened. Never happened. I never went home and they were like, where the hell were you? We were looking for you this morning or this afternoon, we couldn't find you. Never happened. But yeah, and then I would take the train out into the suburbs. But you know, I especially loved one of the train systems. It was like a streetcar. It would convert. So I loved that one, and that one was the biggest one. So I would sit there just enjoying the ride. Never had the same train driver twice. It was always different, because if it was the same one, they would be like, oh, there's that kid again, just riding around all day. And then there was a LAPD. Well, there was a bus driver, old guy, probably close to retirement when I had him, you know, good 64, and he had, I loved the buses, you know, the big full-size ones back then. So we had these big 70s ones that were out. They were out from the 60s. If you see the ending of Welcome Back Carter credits, you'll know exactly which bus design I'm talking about. I think they were made by General Motors. But then after that, right around 82, 83, these newer buses came out. Everything was new inside. They had, and the way I'll describe this bus is the driver's windshield, there were two windshields divided, and then you had where the driver was and then the other side. The driver's side was in at an angle, and the other one was kind of flush with the actual bus frame. So those were big and brand new, and they had power steering, where the older ones, they had a struggle, you know, to turn the wheel, because there was no power steering in those. So when those came out, I used to take the bus from a distance, and he was always the bus driver, so he knew me, he would see me, and what I really enjoyed, I would sit in the front for one reason. I'm usually a back seat guy. I love the back of the bus, but every once in a while I will sit in the front because I enjoy watching the driving. I always wanted to drive one of those, including a Peterbilt Peterbilt truck. Always wanted to drive one of those. Get here like a truck now. So I would sit in the front because he would go out, you know, stretch out a little bit, because that was the first stop or the last stop, depending on how you want to look at it. And then tons of people would get on, maybe like 30 people or so, and they would put their change in that you know, machine there in the front, and the thing would fill up. You would see the platform, you know, at the bottom, and it would have like tons of change. And then he would get on the bus, and I would be waiting for it to push the lever down so all the change would fall in. And once he did that, it would have that counting, and it was all analog, and you'd see the numbers flipping because it was counting the change, and it would make that clickly click 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 sound, that for like the next 10 minutes, and I loved it. I loved it. It would soothe me. I would sit there listening to that. To this day, I want to buy one of those, you know, one of those fare counters, fare machines. Loved them, loved them. I've seen them for sale at antique shops, but every time I see them, I'm not sure if they actually work. So I haven't bought them, and plus they're kind of pricey. I've seen them for like 600 bucks. Doesn't sound like much, but you know, if you don't really need it that much, it sounds like much. So yeah, that was one of my favorite things on the bus. And then I would relax there watching him, you know, do the big, you know, big spinning of the wheel. And he was a very good bus driver. Probably long dead now, because I'm talking about like 1983 here. So those were my favorite ones. Then the ones that, you know, were before them, also nice and big, but those did not have power steering. So I had this thing in my head that when I got older, I would find one of those models, the ones that came out in the 80s, and I would remove like half the seats, kind of spread them out a little bit, put a couple of beds in there and a few other things that you need, and then I would just drive on the highways, you know, see different places. I would go to what's that place there with Devil's Tower there, from the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I would go there and I would just visit all these places. Now I look at it and I go, yeah, I don't know. First of all, you stick out like a sore thumb. You'd rather buy a, you know, motorhome, an RV, something that's already made for that purpose. You know, one of those things that looks like a modern Greyhound bus, but inside it looks like a house. Well, maybe later when I get a little bit older, I'll buy one of those and see the byways and highways of America. I've already done all that with a car. I've seen pretty much every place that I'm interested in seeing in this country, but there's no problem with seeing it twice. Some of them I've seen twice, 3 times, 4 times. I would like to go to Devil's Tower again, because I haven't been there with my kids. I've been there with my wife, but not with my kids. I'd like to get one of those nice motorhomes. The big ones though. You know, the ones that when you park, the sides extend outward so you have more space in there. And then you have an app and it tells you where to stop. You know, with all the hookups are. And you get tired, you look up, you're like, okay, a couple of miles is a place. Pull over and take a nap. Yep. But they're like 300, 400 grand, some of them more. They're not cheap. Oh, you can rent one. I don't know if you need a special license though to drive those. You probably do. Yep. But they're awesome. They're awesome. You go to all the places you want to see, and then you have a hotel that follows you, just like the cruise ship. That was a really beautiful experience this past summer. LAPD. Went to Alaska. Very relaxing. At nighttime, I'd get up in the middle of the night. I'd open up the cabin door to go out into the balcony, and I would look out. It was like darkness. Couldn't see anything. The only thing you could see is down below, the whiteness of the waves breaking against the ship. That was it. I even had a really powerful flashlight, and that would just reflect the moisture in the air. You wouldn't be able to see too far. Anyway, that's it for now. I highly recommend this coffee here. Papagayo's Traditional, since 1920. That. Delicious. Anyway, ciao for now.